I never believed that a place could remember people. I believed memories lived in photographs, in old letters, in fading voices trapped inside our minds. But the moment I stood in front of my grandmother's house again, I felt it watching me, quiet, patient, as if it had been waiting for this exact moment. The house didn't look angry or welcoming. It looked awake. And somehow, I knew this visit was going to change everything I thought I knew about my family. My name is Ethan. I'm 24 years old, and I hadn't been back to this town since I was 13, the year my grandmother, Margaret, died. Back then, everyone said her death was peaceful. They said she went in her sleep. But standing there now, with the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the porch, I felt a strange pressure in my chest, as if the truth had been buried under polite lies for years. I didn't know why I felt that way. I just did. The house itself was old, older than it looked in my childhood memories. The white paint had yellowed, peeling in thin curls. The wooden steps creaked under my weight, complaining like they recognized me but weren't sure they were happy about it. When I unlocked the door, the smell hit me instantly. Dust, old wood, and something deeper, heavier, a smell that reminded me of forgotten rooms and secrets that had never been spoken out loud. I told myself I was only here to clean the place before it was sold. That's what my mother, Linda, had said on the phone. Just a few days, Ethan. Take what you want, throw the rest away. Her voice had been too calm, too rehearsed. She didn't mention Grandma Margaret by name. She never did anymore, and that alone should have warned me. As I stepped inside, memories rushed back in fragments. The old floral couch where Margaret used to knit, the grandfather clock that never worked but ticked anyway, stubborn and loud, the hallway that always felt longer at night. Everything was exactly where it used to be, and yet it felt wrong, like a perfect copy missing its soul. I started with the living room, opening drawers, sorting through old papers, bills, letters, yellowed envelopes with names I didn't recognize. Every few minutes, I felt the urge to look over my shoulder, not because I heard something, but because I felt like I shouldn't be alone. The house was too quiet, the kind of quiet that presses against your ears and makes your own breathing sound foreign. That was when I noticed the door. At first, I thought it was just another shadow. The hallway lighting was poor, and the sun barely reached that side of the house. But as I moved closer, my heart began to beat faster. I had walked this hallway 1,000 times as a child. I knew every door. The bathroom, the guest room, Grandma Margaret's bedroom. But this door didn't belong. It was narrow, painted the same color as the wall, almost perfectly hidden. No handle, no keyhole, just a faint outline, as if someone had tried very hard to pretend it didn't exist. I stared at it for a long time, my mind racing through childhood memories, searching for any moment when I might have seen it before. There was nothing, no memory, no explanation. I should have ignored it. I should have walked away and told myself it was just an old storage space. But something deep inside me, something instinctive and cold, told me that this door mattered, that whatever was behind it had been kept hidden for a reason. I ran my fingers along the edge of the door and felt it. A slight groove, a hidden latch. My pulse jumped. I wasn't supposed to find this. I knew that as clearly as I knew my own name. And yet, the urge to open it was overwhelming, like a whisper in the back of my mind repeating, "You're finally here." The door didn't open easily. It resisted, as if it had been locked by time itself. When it finally gave way, the sound echoed through the hallway, a low, tired groan. Cold air rushed out, brushing against my face. The smell was different here, sharper, older, like a room that had been sealed off from the world and left to rot in silence. The room was small, much smaller than I expected. No windows, just a single hanging bulb that flickered weakly when I pulled the chain. What I saw made my stomach tighten. The walls were covered in scratches, deep, uneven marks, as if someone had clawed at them in desperation. There were shelves filled with boxes, all neatly labeled in my grandmother's handwriting. Dates, names, places, and in the center of the room, a wooden chair facing the wall. My throat went dry. This wasn't storage. This wasn't forgotten clutter. This room had a purpose, and whatever that purpose was, it wasn't kind. I picked up the nearest box. My hands were shaking now, though I didn't know why. The label read, Ethan, 2012. My breath caught. That was the year I last stayed in this house, the year I had those nightmares, the year I suddenly stopped dreaming altogether. I opened the box. Inside were drawings, my drawings, crude sketches of the house, the hallway, the door that wasn't supposed to exist. Page after page of things I didn't remember drawing, symbols, faces without eyes, a woman standing in the dark, watching, and written in the margins over and over again in shaky pencil. Don't tell Mom. Grandma said it's safer if I forget. My head started to spin. Grandma Margaret had always been kind, gentle, protective. At least that's how everyone remembered her. But the evidence in my hands told a different story, one that made my chest feel tight and my thoughts blur. And then I heard it, a sound from upstairs, slow, heavy, deliberate, footsteps. I froze, every muscle in my body locking in place. I was alone. I knew I was. No one else had a key to this house anymore. And yet, the footsteps continued, moving across the ceiling, right above the secret room. Whoever or whatever was up there knew I had found the door. The footsteps stopped. That silence was worse than the sound itself. It wasn't sudden, it was deliberate, as if whatever had been moving upstairs wanted me to notice the pause. I stood frozen in the secret room, the box still open in my hands, my own childhood drawings staring back at me like accusations. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure it would give me away. I waited. 5 seconds, 10, nothing. I told myself it was the house settling. Old homes make noises, that's what people say when they don't want to face the truth. But this wasn't a creak or a groan. Those footsteps had weight, rhythm, intention. Slowly, carefully, I placed the box back on the shelf. My name, Ethan, looked different now, written in my grandmother's neat handwriting. It didn't feel like a label anymore. It felt like a warning. I reached for another box, my fingers brushing dust into the air. This one read, Linda, 1989. My mother. My throat tightened. I hesitated, then opened it. Inside were letters, dozens of them, some sealed, some torn open, all written in the same familiar cursive, Grandma Margaret's handwriting. I picked one at random and unfolded it, my hands trembling as I read. Linda doesn't remember anymore. That's good. Forgetting keeps her safe. One day she'll thank me. I felt a chill crawl up my spine. Forgetting what? Safe from whom or from what? Another letter mentioned a room, though it never called it secret. It called it necessary. Another spoke of the line and the inheritance, words that meant nothing to me but felt heavy with meaning. As I read, a pattern began to form, one I didn't like. Grandma Margaret hadn't just lived in this house. She had guarded something, controlled something, and somehow she had decided that memories themselves were dangerous. A sudden bang echoed from upstairs. I flinched, nearly dropping the letter. The sound came from directly above the hallway. Something had fallen or been knocked over. My pulse spiked. I wasn't imagining it anymore. Someone was in the house with me. I stepped out of the secret room slowly, leaving the hidden door ajar. The hallway felt narrower now, the shadows thicker. Every step I took felt like I was moving deeper into something I couldn't escape. I grabbed the nearest thing I could find, a heavy brass candlestick from the side table, and held it tightly, my knuckles turning white. "Hello?" My voice sounded weak, unfamiliar. No answer. I moved toward the stairs, each creak beneath my feet sending a jolt of fear through my body. Halfway up, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The framed photograph on the wall, one I remembered clearly from childhood, was gone. In its place was an empty outline, lighter than the rest of the wall, as if the picture had been removed recently. That photo had been of Grandma Margaret, my mother, Linda, and me, standing right here in this house. Someone had taken it, and they hadn't bothered to hide that fact. At the top of the stairs, the door to my grandmother's bedroom stood open. I remembered that room better than any other. The soft blue curtains, the smell of lavender, the way Margaret used to sit by the window and hum when she thought no one was listening. The bed looked untouched, too untouched. The dresser cleared of dust, but something was wrong. I couldn't see it at first, but I felt it, like walking into a space where an argument had just ended. Then I saw the floor. Fresh footprints in the dust, leading from the window to the closet. I swallowed hard and approached it slowly. The closet door was slightly open, just enough to reveal darkness inside. I raised the candlestick higher, bracing myself. I pulled the door open. It was empty. No person, no shadow, just old coats in a single wooden box on the floor, smaller than the ones in the secret room. No label this time. I crouched and opened it. Inside was a tape recorder, an old one, the kind that clicks loudly when you press play. My heart raced as I picked it up. A small piece of masking tape was stuck to the side with one word written on it: Ethan. I stared at it for a long time before pressing the button. The tape crackled, then a familiar voice filled the room. Grandma Margaret. If you're hearing this, then it means you've come back, and if you've come back, it means the forgetting didn't last. My legs felt weak. I sat down hard on the bed, gripping the recorder like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. Grandma Margaret continued, I did what I had to do. This house keeps things alive, things that should never be remembered. It remembers pain, it remembers blood, and sometimes it remembers people. My chest tightened. The room seemed to grow colder with every word. You, Ethan, were always sensitive. You saw things too early, heard things you shouldn't have. So I helped you forget. I helped your mother forget too. It was the only way to protect you both. Protect us from what? The cape hissed briefly, then continued. The room isn't a prison, it's a shield. But shields don't last forever. And when they fail, the house chooses someone new. A sudden noise behind me made me spin around. The bedroom door slammed shut. The handle began to turn slowly, deliberately from the outside. I backed away, my heart hammering, the recorder still playing in my hand. Grandma Margaret's voice grew quieter, almost pleading. Do not open the room again. And whatever you do, don't let the house remember you." The handle stopped turning. Silence. I stood there, trapped between a locked door and a truth I wasn't ready to face, realizing something horrifying. I hadn't just found the secret room. The secret room had been waiting for me. The door didn't open. That realization came slowly, like a blade pressing against my thoughts. I twisted the handle again, harder this time. Nothing. The bedroom door was locked from the outside. My breath grew shallow, my pulse pounding so violently I could feel it in my throat. The tape recorder was still in my hand, its plastic warm, as if Grandma Margaret's voice had left a physical trace behind. "Think," I whispered to myself. "Think, Ethan." I stepped back, scanning the room. The window. That was my only way out. I rushed toward it and pulled the curtains aside. The glass was intact, but nailed shut. Fresh nails. The wood around the frame was lighter, recently disturbed. Someone hadn't just locked me in. Someone had planned this. A sound drifted through the walls. Breathing. Not mine. It was slow and uneven, like someone standing very close, inhaling deeply through their nose. I froze, every nerve screaming at me to stay silent. The sound moved, sliding along the wall, stopping just outside the door. "You remember now, don't you?" The voice was soft, familiar, female. My stomach dropped. "Mom?" I said. Silence followed, then a quiet laugh, low, controlled, almost sad. "That's what you used to call me," the voice replied. My knees felt weak. "What are you talking about? Mom, open the door!" The handle didn't move. Instead, footsteps retreated, slow and deliberate, moving away down the hallway. I stood there shaking, trying to make sense of what I had just heard. My mother, Linda, was supposed to be 3 states away. She had called me herself, told me to take care of the house and leave as soon as possible. She had sounded normal, calm. Hadn't she? The tape recorder clicked off on its own. I stared at it, my reflection faintly visible in the scratched plastic. For the first time since arriving, I felt something worse than fear. Doubt. Doubt in my memories, doubt in my past, doubt in the people I trusted most. Minutes passed, maybe longer. Eventually, I heard the lock turn. The door creaked open slowly, revealing an empty hallway. No sign of my mother, no movement, just silence, thick and oppressive. I stepped out cautiously, my senses on high alert. The house felt different now, heavier, like it knew I had listened to the tape, like it was adjusting to my awareness. I went straight back to the secret room. The door was wide open. The shelves were untouched, but the chair in the center had moved. It now faced the entrance, as if someone had been sitting there waiting for me. My heart hammered painfully against my ribs. I approached the chair slowly, dread pooling in my stomach. Something was carved into the wooden back. A name. Ethan. Below it, another name, older, deeper, more worn. Linda. And below that, faint but unmistakable, Margaret. 3 generations, 3 names bound together by this room. I backed away, my mind racing. Grandma Margaret hadn't been guarding the room from outsiders. She had been guarding it from us, from her own blood. I suddenly remembered things, small, fragmented moments from childhood that never made sense before. Waking up in the middle of the night, standing in the hallway without knowing how I got there. Grandma Margaret's hand on my shoulder, firm but gentle, guiding me back to bed. Her whisper, "You don't need to remember this." The truth hit me like a wave. The house didn't just remember people, it claimed them. I grabbed another box, one I had ignored earlier. The label read, "The First." Inside were old photographs, far older than Grandma Margaret, black and white images of the house when it was new, and in every photo there was a person standing in the same spot, right in front of the secret room door. Different faces, same expression, fear. On the back of one photo, written in shaky ink, "The house chooses, blood keeps it strong." I staggered back, bile rising in my throat. This wasn't just my family's secret. It was a cycle, a ritual passed down through generations. Each generation sacrificed something, or someone, to keep the house quiet, to keep it asleep. A sudden, sharp pain exploded behind my eyes. Images flooded my mind, uninvited. Me as a child, sitting in that chair. Grandma Margaret standing over me, tears streaming down her face as she whispered apologies. My mother Linda watching from the doorway, her expression distant, hollow, like someone already forgetting. I dropped to my knees, clutching my head. "No, you didn't!" Footsteps echoed behind me. I turned slowly. My mother Linda stood in the doorway. She looked older than I remembered, thinner. Her eyes were dark, sunken, filled with a sadness that went beyond exhaustion. She wasn't holding a weapon. She didn't look threatening. She looked almost resigned. "You begged her not to do it to you," Linda said quietly. But the house was restless. It needed a name. My chest tightened painfully. "You let me erase me!" Tears welled in Linda's eyes. She said it was the only way you'd survive. The house doesn't let go easily, Ethan. Once it notices you, it never really forgets. I shook my head, disbelief and anger colliding inside me. "So why bring me back here?" Her lips trembled. "Because Grandma Margaret is gone, and the house is awake again." The floor creaked beneath us, the sound rippling through the walls like a warning. The light flickered violently. It needs a new guardian, or it will take one. I stared at my mother, at the fear etched into her face, and realized the horrifying truth. Coming back here hadn't been a mistake. It had been a summons. And the house wasn't done with me yet. The moment Ethan realized that the house had chosen him, something inside him broke and something else woke up. It wasn't courage, it wasn't anger, it was a quiet, terrifying clarity. The kind that comes when you finally understand that running is no longer an option. Ethan stood frozen in the secret room, staring at Linda, his own mother, whose eyes refused to meet his. The light flickered above them again, slower this time, as if the house itself was breathing. The air felt thicker, heavier, pressing against Ethan's chest with every shallow breath. "You knew," Ethan said, his voice trembling despite his effort to sound calm. "You knew all of this, and you still sent me here." Linda swallowed hard. Her hands were clenched at her sides, fingers shaking. "I tried to stay away," Linda whispered. "I tried to ignore it, but the house doesn't forget blood, Ethan. It kept calling every night, every dream." The word dream hit Ethan harder than anything else. Suddenly flashes returned, fragmented and sharp, standing at the top of the stairs as a child, hearing whispers behind the walls, waking up crying with Grandma Margaret sitting beside him, stroking his hair, murmuring words he could never remember afterward. "You didn't protect me," Ethan said, his voice breaking. "You erased me." Tears finally spilled down Linda's face. "Your grandmother believed forgetting was mercy," Linda said. "She believed pain lived in memory, and the house feeds on pain." That sentence settled into Ethan's mind like poison. Feeds. "So what now?" Ethan asked quietly. "What does it want from me?" Before Linda could answer, a low sound vibrated through the floorboards, not a noise, more like a pulse. The walls seemed to tighten around them, the scratches in the secret room stretching longer, deeper, as if reacting to the conversation. Linda flinched. "It's listening," she whispered. "It always listens." A sudden wave of dizziness washed over Ethan. He grabbed the shelf to steady himself, his fingers brushing against another box. This one wasn't labeled with a name. It had only one word written across the top in Grandma Margaret's handwriting. Confession. Ethan's heart pounded as he opened it. Inside were journals, dozens of them. Some belonged to Grandma Margaret, others were much older, different handwriting, different eras, but every journal told the same story, different voices, same fear. The house had existed long before Grandma Margaret, long before Linda, long before Ethan. Each generation had a chosen one, a watcher, a keeper, someone who stayed close to the room, close to the house, keeping its hunger under control. And when that keeper grew weak, the house chose again. Ethan read faster now, desperation fueling him. One journal described a young woman who tried to leave town and was found days later sitting silently in the secret room, her eyes empty. Another spoke of a man who burned the house down, only for it to be rebuilt on the same foundation, the rooms still intact. "You can't destroy it," Linda said softly, reading Ethan's expression. "Grandma Margaret tried everything, fire, locks, prayers." "Then why did she die?" Ethan asked. Linda's voice dropped to a whisper. "Because she refused to pass it on." The truth slammed into Ethan like a physical blow. "She chose me instead," Ethan said. "Yes," Linda replied, tears streaming freely now. "And I let her." The floor creaked again, louder this time. The light bulb burst with a sharp pop, plunging the room into semi-darkness. In that dim glow, Ethan saw something that made his blood run cold. The chair in the center of the room was moving, slowly, turning until it faced Ethan directly. A deep pressure filled Ethan's head, memories flooding back without warning, screams, his own, Grandma Margaret crying, Linda standing in the doorway, hands covering her mouth, whispering, "Please make it stop." "You sat there every night for weeks until you stopped screaming." Ethan staggered back. "Why didn't you save me?" "Because if I had," Linda whispered, "the house would have taken you completely." The walls groaned, the sound rippling through the house like a warning bell. A deep, inhuman whisper echoed from within the room, not words, but intent. Ethan felt it then, the pull. The room wasn't asking anymore. It was demanding. "I won't do it," Ethan said through clenched teeth. The whisper grew louder. The door behind Linda slammed shut on its own. Dust rained from the ceiling. The house was losing patience. "There is another way," Linda said suddenly, her voice shaking but determined. "Grandma Margaret believed it was too dangerous, but she never tried it." Ethan looked at her sharply. "What way?" Linda hesitated, then met Ethan's eyes for the first time. "The house binds itself to blood, but blood can be severed." Before Ethan could ask what she meant, Linda reached into her coat pocket and pulled out an old rusted key, the same shape as the hidden latch on the secret room door. "This key doesn't lock the room, it locks the bond." The whisper suddenly turned into a scream, angry, furious, desperate. The floor beneath them cracked, and Ethan realized with chilling certainty that whatever Linda was about to do, the house would not allow it without a fight. The scream from the house didn't fade. It spread. Ethan felt it travel through the walls, through the floor, through his bones. It wasn't a sound meant for ears. It was meant for blood. The rusted key trembled violently in Linda's hand, as if the house itself was trying to rip it away from her grasp. "You don't understand what you're doing," Ethan said, his voice shaking, his eyes locked on the key. "If this binds the house, then what happens to us?" Linda swallowed, her face pale, her eyes wet but steady. "What always happens," Linda whispered. "Someone pays the price." The crack in the floor widened with a sickening groan. Dust rose into the air, stinging Ethan's eyes. The chair in the center of the secret room slammed backward against the wall, then snapped forward again, as if something invisible had stood up from it in rage. The house was no longer pretending. Ethan took a step back. Memories began crashing into him, stronger now, clearer, not fragments anymore, full scenes, full pain. He saw himself as a child, sitting in the chair, legs dangling, tears soaking his shirt. He heard his own voice screaming Linda's name over and over. He remembered Grandma Margaret gripping his shoulders, whispering apologies between sobs. "I'm sorry, Ethan. I'm so sorry. It has to forget you." "No," Ethan whispered, clutching his head. "Stop." But the house didn't stop. The whispers returned, dozens of them now, layered, overlapping, desperate. Names, dates, pleas. All the voices of those who had come before. All the voices the house had kept. "This is what it does," Linda said, raising her voice over the growing noise. "It buries people inside memory until they belong to it. Grandma Margaret believed erasing memories was kinder than letting the house consume you completely." A sharp pain exploded in Ethan's chest. "Then why didn't she erase herself?" Linda's breath caught. "Because she couldn't," Linda said softly. "She was already too deep." The walls shuddered violently. The hidden door began to close on its own, inch by inch, the latch scraping loudly as if sealing fate itself. Ethan's pulse spiked. "If that door closes," Ethan started. "It will finish choosing," Linda interrupted, "and once it does, it won't let go again." Without thinking, Ethan lunged forward, slamming his shoulder against the door. Pain shot through his arm, but he forced it back open, breathing hard. "I won't let it take me. I won't let you take you either." Linda stared at him, a mixture of fear and pride crossing her face. "That's why it wants you," Linda whispered. "You fight." The whispers turned angry. The floorboards beneath Ethan's feet buckled, splitting open to reveal darkness below, colder than a basement, deeper than the house itself. Cold air surged upward, carrying the stench of rot and old tears. "This house was built on something," Linda said. "Something hungry, something ancient. Our family didn't create it, we fed it." Ethan looked down into the darkness and felt it looking back. "What does the key really do?" Ethan asked. Linda hesitated. Then, finally, she told the truth. "It severs the bloodline," Linda said. "The house binds itself through family memory. If the bond is cut, it loses its anchor." Ethan's heart pounded. Meaning, Linda said, tears spilling freely now, "that whoever turns the key will be erased from the family completely. No memories, no photographs, no records. No one will remember they ever existed." The words crushed Ethan. "You mean die?" "No," Linda said, shaking her head. "Worse, you'll live, but you'll live as a stranger to everyone you love, and they'll live without knowing they lost you." The house roared in response, the whispers turning frantic, panicked. It understood now. It was afraid. Ethan looked at Linda, really looked at her, the lines of exhaustion, the years of guilt carved into her face, the nights she must have spent trying to forget what she had allowed. "You were going to do it," Ethan realized. "That's why you came back. You were going to erase yourself." Linda nodded slowly. "It was always supposed to be me." "No," Ethan said immediately. "I won't let you. You already paid once. I won't let you pay again." The house screamed louder, the walls bleeding dust, the ceiling cracking. Time was collapsing around them. Ethan felt a strange calm settle over him. "All my life," Ethan said quietly, "you let me believe I was broken, that something was wrong with me. But it wasn't me. It was this place." He reached for the key. Linda's eyes widened. "Ethan, don't!" "I remember everything now, and if someone has to be forgotten, let it be me." The whisper suddenly stopped. Complete silence. The house was listening. Ethan closed his fingers around the key, feeling its cold bite against his skin. Images of Grandma Margaret flashed through his mind, her tears, her love, her impossible choice. "I forgive you," Ethan whispered. "All of you." He moved toward the hidden lock, carved deep into the wall, right where the names were etched. Before he could turn the key, the floor beneath Linda collapsed. She screamed as she fell, disappearing into the darkness below. "Mom!" Ethan shouted, rushing forward. The house had made its choice, and it wasn't done yet. The scream didn't echo. That was the first thing Ethan noticed. When Linda fell into the darkness beneath the floor, her scream didn't bounce off the walls or fade into distance. It was swallowed instantly, as if the house itself had inhaled her. The silence that followed was so complete it made Ethan's ears ring. "Mom! Linda!" Ethan shouted, dropping to his knees at the edge of the broken floor. Nothing answered him. The darkness below shifted, thick and alive like something slowly turning over in its sleep. Ethan's chest burned as panic clawed its way up his throat. He leaned forward, peering into the void, desperate to see movement, desperate to hear even the faintest sign that Linda was still alive. "Please," Ethan whispered, "please come back." The house responded. The walls groaned deeply, the sound traveling through the structure like a warning growl. The secret room door slammed shut behind Ethan, locking him inside with the broken floor and the waiting darkness. The light flickered back on, harsh and unforgiving, illuminating something Ethan hadn't seen before. Handprints. Dozens of them, pressed into the walls, overlapping, some large, some small, all reaching outward as if clawing their way free. Ethan staggered backwards, his breath coming fast and shallow. These weren't scratches. These were marks left by people who had been pulled down. "Linda!" Ethan said again, his voice breaking. A sound rose from the darkness, wet, shifting, almost like a breath. Then a voice, not screaming, not crying, speaking calmly. "Ethan," Linda's voice said from below, "listen to me." Ethan's heart slammed painfully against his ribs. "Mom, I'm here. I'm coming down." "No," Linda said quickly. "You can't. If you step past the edge, it will take you completely." Tears blurred Ethan's vision. "Then tell me what to do." There was a pause. When Linda spoke again, her voice sounded distant, strained, as if she were speaking through water. "The house doesn't want me," Linda said. "It already had me once. It wants you." Ethan clenched his fists. "Then I'll give it what it wants. I'll finish this." "No," Linda said firmly. "You finish it by refusing." The darkness below churned violently, reacting to her words. The house didn't like this conversation. The whispers returned, hissing angrily from every corner of the room, pressing against Ethan's mind like needles. "Ethan," Linda said, her voice trembling now. "Grandma Margaret believed memory was the key. She was wrong. Memory is the bait." Images flooded Ethan's thoughts again. Every erased night, every forgotten scream, every moment he had felt broken without knowing why. The house had fed on those moments, on confusion, on fear. "What do I do?" Ethan whispered. "You remember," Linda said. "All of it. You don't fight the memories. You don't run from them. You own them." The whispers grew louder now, panicked, desperate, and overlapping. "This house survives on secrets," Linda continued, "on things left unsaid, on pain buried instead of faced." Ethan felt something shift inside him. For the first time, the fear didn't overwhelm him. It focused him. "I remember," Ethan said aloud. The house shook violently. "I remember sitting in that chair," Ethan continued, his voice growing steadier. "I remember screaming for you, Linda. I remember Grandma Margaret crying while she told me forgetting would save me." The darkness below writhed. "I remember thinking I was weak. I remember hating myself for being afraid." The whispers turned shrill. "But I wasn't weak. I was a child." A deep crack split the wall behind him, running straight through the carved names. "I remember everything," Ethan said louder now, "and I'm not ashamed anymore." The house screamed. The sound was deafening, violent, furious. The handprints on the walls began to fade, dissolving like smoke. The darkness below recoiled, pulling inward as if wounded. "Ethan," Linda said urgently, her voice fading, "it's losing its grip. This is your only chance." The rusted key lay where Linda had dropped it earlier, half buried in dust near the wall. Ethan picked it up, feeling its weight, its finality. "If I turn it," Ethan said, "you won't be erased. Not this time. You're not running anymore. You're choosing." The lock appeared in the wall, emerging from the wood like a scar reopening. The house trembled, trying to pull the key from Ethan's hand. "You don't own me," Ethan said through clenched teeth. He pushed the key into the lock. The moment he turned it, the house screamed one last time, raw, furious, terrified. The floor sealed shut beneath him. The whispers vanished. The light steadied. Silence fell, not heavy this time, but hollow. Ethan collapsed to the floor, gasping for breath. "Mom?" Ethan whispered. No answer, only his own grieving, and the slow realization that the house felt empty. Whatever had lived here was gone, but something else remained, a final truth. The lock clicked open again on its own, and carved beneath the names on the wall, a new sentence appeared, fresh, deep, undeniable. The house sleeps, but blood remembers. Ethan stared at the words, understanding dawning in his chest. This wasn't the end. It was only the pause between awakenings. The silence didn't feel like peace. That was the first truth Ethan understood as he sat alone on the floor of the secret room. The house was quiet now, too quiet. No whispers, no groans, no shifting walls. But the absence of sound didn't erase what had happened. It only gave it space to echo inside him. Ethan slowly pushed himself up, his legs weak, his body trembling as if he had survived a long illness. The dust in the air had settled, the cracks in the floor were gone, sealed as if they had never existed. Only the scars remained, the scratched walls, the carved names, and the memory of Linda falling into the darkness. "Mom," Ethan whispered again. No answer. The room didn't respond. It didn't react. For the first time since he arrived, the house felt indifferent, like a beast that had been fed or wounded and retreated into sleep. Ethan staggered out of the secret room into the hallway. The hidden door remained open, no longer pretending to be part of the wall. It had revealed itself, and now it no longer cared who saw it. He climbed the stairs slowly, each step heavy with exhaustion. The upstairs hallway was exactly as he had left it, except it wasn't. The framed photograph that had been missing earlier now lay on the floor face down. Ethan hesitated before picking it up. It was the same picture. The silence didn't feel like peace. That was the first truth Ethan understood as he sat alone on the floor of the secret room. The house was quiet now, too quiet. No whispers, no groans, no shifting walls. But the absence of sound didn't erase what had happened. It only gave it space to echo inside him. Ethan slowly pushed himself up, his legs weak, his body trembling as if he had survived a long illness. The dust in the air had settled, the cracks in the floor were gone, sealed as if they had never existed. Only the scars remained, the scratched walls, the carved names, and the memory of Linda falling into the darkness. "Mom," Ethan whispered again. No answer. The room didn't respond. It didn't react. For the first time since he arrived, the house felt indifferent, like a beast that had been fed or wounded and retreated into sleep. Ethan staggered out of the secret room into the hallway. The hidden door remained open, no longer pretending to be part of the wall. It had revealed itself, and now it no longer cared who saw it. He climbed the stairs slowly, each step heavy with exhaustion. The upstairs hallway was exactly as he had left it, except it wasn't. The framed photograph that had been missing earlier now lay on the floor face down. Ethan hesitated before picking it up. It was the same picture. Grandma Margaret, Linda, and Ethan standing together in front of the house. But something was wrong. Linda's face was blurred, not damaged, not scratched, blurred like a memory fading at the edges. Ethan's chest tightened. He understood immediately. The house had lost its grip, but the cost hadn't disappeared. The bond had been severed, but not without consequence. "You're still paying, even now," Ethan whispered. He carried the photograph into Grandma Margaret's bedroom and placed it gently on the bed. The tape recorder lay where he had dropped it earlier. On impulse, he pressed play. Static. Then silence. Grandma Margaret's voice didn't return. For the first time, Ethan felt truly alone. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time felt strange now, stretched thin by shock and grief. Eventually, Ethan found himself sitting on the porch as dawn broke over the horizon. The morning light painted the house in soft gold, disguising its ugliness, its hunger. From the outside, it looked harmless again. That terrified him. A car pulled up slowly at the edge of the driveway. Ethan's heart jumped, fear flaring instinctively, but the car stopped and a man stepped out, middle-aged, polite, wearing a jacket with an official badge. "Ethan Collins?" the man asked gently. "Yes, sir. I'm Officer Reed. Your neighbor called in a welfare check, said they heard screaming last night." Ethan's mouth dried. "Did you find anyone else?" He glanced toward the house, then back at Ethan. "No, sir. Just you." Just you. The words hit harder than any scream. They went inside together. Officer Reed walked through every room, including the hallway where the secret door stood wide open. He stopped, frowning. "This wasn't on the original floor plan," Officer Reed said. Ethan watched him carefully. "Do you see anything strange?" Officer Reed shook his head. "Just an old house." Ethan's heart sank. The room was visible, but only to him. When Officer Reed finally left, promising to follow up later, Ethan felt the weight of a truth settling into his bones. The house hadn't disappeared. It hadn't been destroyed. It had simply gone dormant, and dormancy was not the same as death. That afternoon, Ethan began packing. He moved mechanically, sorting through items that now felt unfamiliar. Grandma Margaret's books, old clothes, letters that no longer made sense. In one drawer, he found a final journal he hadn't seen before. No name on the cover. Inside, only one page had been written. "If you are reading this, then you survived what I could not prevent. Leaving will not save you. Staying will not either. The house remembers blood, but blood remembers pain. Decide which one you will carry." The handwriting was Grandma Margaret's. Ethan closed the journal slowly. That night, as he prepared to leave the house for good, he paused at the front door. His reflection stared back at him in the darkened glass. Older than he had been days ago, eyes heavier, deeper. "I won't come back," Ethan said aloud. The house didn't respond, but as Ethan stepped onto the porch, he felt it, a presence, not inside the house, inside himself. A flicker of memory surfaced, something he hadn't remembered before. Not fear, not pain, a sense of watching. Ethan froze. He turned back toward the house. For just a moment, he thought he saw movement behind the upstairs window. Not a figure, a reflection. His own, smiling. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. The door slammed shut behind him on its own, and for the first time, Ethan wondered if the house had truly lost its keeper, or if it had simply moved one step closer to him. The reflection didn't move. That was what terrified Ethan the most. He stood frozen on the porch, his hand still hovering near the doorknob, staring at the upstairs window where his own face had appeared moments earlier. The house behind him was silent, unmoving, as if nothing had happened, as if it hadn't swallowed generations of pain and memory, as if it hadn't just shown him something impossible. Slowly, cautiously, Ethan stepped back inside. The door didn't resist him this time. It closed gently behind him, almost politely. That small detail sent a chill through his spine. The house no longer needed him to trap him. It knew he wasn't running. I saw you, Ethan said aloud, his voice echoing through the hallway. I know you're still here. The words felt foolish the moment they left his mouth, and yet something shifted. Not a sound, not a movement, a presence, subtle, patient. Ethan climbed the stairs again, his footsteps slower now, heavier with dread. The upstairs hallway felt longer than before, stretching unnaturally as he walked. When he reached the window, he leaned in close. Nothing, just his reflection, tired, pale, older. Relief washed over him, brief and fragile. Then the reflection smiled. Not Ethan. Not really. The smile was too slow, too deliberate, and Ethan felt it then, a disconnect between what he was doing and what the reflection was doing. His own lips were still, the reflection's were not. You don't get to leave, the reflection whispered. The glass cracked. Ethan staggered back, heart racing. The crack spread outward like a spider web, but the glass didn't shatter. Instead, images flickered across it, like memories being projected. Grandma Margaret, younger than Ethan had ever seen her, standing in the secret room. Linda, much younger too, sitting in the chair, trembling. And then Ethan himself, small and terrified, staring straight into the glass. That's when it started, Ethan whispered. The house answered. The whisper came from behind him this time, not from the walls, not from the floor, from his own mouth. You were always the strongest. Ethan spun around. Nothing. His heart pounded violently. Stop, Ethan said. You're not me. But the house didn't argue. It proved it. A sharp pain tore through Ethan's head as memories he had never lived flooded his mind. Not his childhood, not his family. Other lives, other names, other keepers. He saw himself as a woman once, as a man with different eyes, as someone older, someone younger, all standing in the same house, all hearing the same whispers, all believing they were chosen. No, gasped Ethan, dropping to his knees. You're not choosing, you're copying. The truth hit him with terrifying clarity. The house didn't create keepers. It mirrored them. It learned them. It became them. That's why the reflection smiled. That's why it spoke in his voice. You carry us now, the house whispered softly. You remember. Ethan clenched his fists. I remember me. The pressure in the air increased, pushing against him from all sides. The house lights flickered rapidly, strobing memories across the walls. Names appeared and vanished, faces formed and dissolved. And then a door opened. Not the secret room, a door Ethan had never seen before. At the end of the hallway stood a narrow door, darker than the rest, its frame warped as if it had been forced open and closed countless times. A faint light leaked from beneath it. This isn't possible, Ethan whispered. The house whispered back. You built this. His stomach dropped. Slowly, trembling, Ethan approached the door. Every step felt like he was walking deeper into his own mind. When he reached it, he noticed something carved into the wood. Not names, choices. Stay, forget, become. His breath shook. There's another way, Ethan said desperately. There has to be. The door creaked open on its own. Inside was no room. It was a memory of the night Grandma Margaret died. Ethan stepped forward without realizing it, watching the scene unfold around him. Grandma Margaret lay in bed, weak but awake. Linda stood beside her, crying, and in the corner of the room, Ethan, older than the child he remembered, watching, waiting. "You were there," Ethan whispered, horror rising in his chest. "I stayed." The memory Margaret turned her head slowly and looked straight at him. "You promised," she said softly. "You said you would watch over it." The scene collapsed. Ethan stumbled backward, gasping for air, the door slamming shut in front of him. The hallway returned, silent and dark. The reflection appeared again in the cracked glass, smiling wider now. "You already chose once. You just forgot." Ethan's heart sank. If that was true, then the house hadn't failed. It had succeeded, and the final choice was still waiting to be made. The idea that Ethan had already chosen once refused to leave his mind. It pressed against him with every breath, with every blink, as he stood in the hallway staring at the cracked glass. The reflection still smiled, but now it didn't feel threatening. It felt patient, like something that had all the time in the world because it already knew the ending. "No," Ethan whispered, "you're lying." The reflection tilted its head slightly, mimicking him perfectly. "That's what you said last time, too." A sharp pain stabbed behind Ethan's eyes. He staggered back, gripping the wall for support as the house shifted around him. The hallway darkened, stretching and narrowing, pulling him forward without touching him. "You didn't just forget," the reflection continued calmly. "You asked to." The words hit harder than any scream. Images poured into Ethan's mind, clearer than before. Not fragments, not impressions. Memories. He saw himself older than 13, standing in the secret room willingly, calm, focused, not afraid. Grandma Margaret was there, her face lined with grief but also relief. Linda stood behind him, shaking, begging him to reconsider. "You don't have to do this," Linda cried in the memory. "I do," the older Ethan replied. "If I stay, you can leave. If I remember, you don't have to." The memory shifted. Ethan felt his knees buckle in the present. "I chose to stay," Ethan whispered in disbelief. "You chose to protect," the house corrected, "just like she did, just like every keeper before you." "No," Ethan snapped, anger surging through the shock. "You twisted it. You trapped us." The reflection's smile faded slightly. "We offered a role. You accepted it." The hallway trembled violently, reacting to Ethan's anger. Frames rattled, the walls groaned. The house didn't like being challenged. "I was a child," Ethan shouted. "You manipulated me." "And yet," the house whispered softly, "you understood more than any of them." The truth settled into Ethan's chest like a weight. The house didn't just feed on fear, it fed on choice. That was the final cruelty. Every keeper believed they were acting freely, protecting someone else, sacrificing themselves willingly, and that belief made the bond stronger than chains. Ethan slid down the wall, sitting heavily on the floor. His breathing was ragged, his hands shaking. If I already chose, then what's left? The reflection crouched too, mirroring him exactly. Completion. A door opened behind Ethan, the secret room. He didn't turn immediately. He didn't need to. He felt it. The pull, stronger than ever, but different now, not demanding, inviting. Inside the room, the chair waited, clean, centered, ready. "This ends if I sit there," Ethan said quietly. "Yes," the house replied. "And if I refuse?" The silence stretched. Then, reluctantly, the house answered. "Then it finds another." A cold dread spread through Ethan's body. He thought of Linda, somewhere out there in the world, alive but fading, of future children, of strangers unknowingly tied to this place by blood. So the choice is me, or someone innocent? Ethan whispered in disbelief. That has always been the choice. Ethan stood slowly. His legs felt heavy, but his mind was clear for the first time since he arrived. He stepped into the secret room, the door closing behind him with a soft click. The light steadied, the whispers quieted. He approached the chair and stopped. "You're afraid," Ethan said suddenly. The house stilled. "You've never had someone remember and refuse. You've only survived because we believed the lie, that this was protection." The walls creaked uneasy. "You don't need a keeper. You need belief." The reflection appeared again, this time on the far wall. "Sit," it urged. "Finish what you started." Ethan shook his head. "I didn't come back to remember. I came back to end it." The air grew thick, vibrating with tension. The house pushed back harder than before, memory slamming into Ethan's mind, pain, terror, guilt, every weapon it had. Ethan screamed, not in fear, but in defiance. "I remember everything, and I choose now." The chair cracked down the middle. The light flickered violently. The carved names on the wall began to bleed black ink, dripping like wounds reopening. The house howled, not in rage, but in panic, because Ethan wasn't sitting. He was walking away. But just as Ethan reached the door, the house spoke one final sentence, quiet and devastating. "If you leave, Linda disappears completely." Ethan froze. His hand hovered inches from the door. His breath caught. The final choice stood in front of him, raw, cruel, absolute. And for the first time, Ethan truly didn't know what he would choose. The house waited. That was the cruelest part of all. It didn't rush Ethan. It didn't scream or shake the walls this time. It simply waited, confident, patient, as if it already knew the outcome. The words it had spoken, "If you leave, Linda disappears completely," hung in the air like a sentence that could never be taken back. Ethan's hand trembled as it hovered near the door. His heart pounded, not with fear now, but with something heavier, responsibility, the kind that settles deep into your bones and changes who you are forever. "You don't get to threaten me with love," Ethan said quietly. The house answered in a voice that sounded almost tired. "Love is why you stayed before." Images surged through Ethan's mind again, not forced this time, but remembered willingly. Linda holding his hand when he was small. Linda sitting on his bed during storms. Linda whispering apologies she didn't fully understand. She spent her whole life paying for one mistake, and so did I. The reflection appeared one last time, no longer smiling. "You can end her suffering. Sit, stay, keep the balance." Ethan turned slowly, looking at the chair, the carved names, the room that had swallowed generations. He felt the pull again, but weaker now, desperate. "You don't need a keeper," Ethan said steadily. "You need permission." The house shuddered. "You survived because we believed you were necessary, because we believed someone had to suffer so others could live." The walls creaked, protesting. But that was a lie we told ourselves because the truth was harder, that pain doesn't protect anyone, it just spreads. The silence deepened. For the first time, Ethan felt the house listening instead of demanding. "I won't sit in that chair, and I won't walk away either." The reflection frowned. There is no third choice. Ethan took a slow breath. Yes, Ethan said, there is. He stepped forward, not toward the chair, but toward the wall where the names were carved. Margaret, Linda, Ethan. So long as we're written here, you own us. He placed his palm flat against the wood. I forgive you, Ethan whispered, not to the house, but to Margaret, to Linda, to himself. The house screamed, not in anger, in fear. The carved names began to crack, splintering outward like glass under pressure. The room shook violently as memories flooded back, not just pain, but truth. Every keeper, every choice, every moment when someone believed suffering was the only answer. No, the house whispered, panicked now. You cannot take them back. I already have, Ethan said. The names shattered completely. The chair collapsed into dust. The whispers vanished mid-breath. And suddenly, the house felt empty. Not silent, empty. Ethan fell to his knees, gasping as the pressure lifted from his chest. The walls stopped moving, the light steadied. The secret room looked like nothing more than an old, forgotten space. A door opened behind him, not the secret door, the front door. Sunlight spilled into the hallway. Ethan? She stood there, real, solid, whole. Her eyes were clear, confused, but alive. Why am I here? Linda asked softly. I feel like I forgot something important. Ethan's chest tightened, tears filled his eyes. He walked to her slowly and wrapped his arms around her, holding on as if letting go might break the world again. It's okay, Ethan whispered. You don't have to remember anymore. They left the house together. For the first time, it didn't watch them go. Weeks later, the house was sold. Strangers moved in. Laughter filled the rooms. The secret door was gone, sealed so completely that even Ethan couldn't find it again. Sometimes late at night, Ethan would wake with a strange feeling, like something trying to remember him. But it never lasted, because memory no longer belonged to the house. It belonged to the people who survived it. And some secrets, once faced, lose their power forever. The end.